All right, welcome everyone. Thank you as always for tuning in. Unless you've been living under a rock and maybe you're not a basketball fan. I'd imagine you're a basketball fan watching this. You probably saw some Luka Doncic
Yeah,
stats recently. What do you have? Was
yeah.
it 60? Was it like
60.
20 and 12 or something like that? He
Yep,
had 20
yep,
rebounds. The 20
yep.
rebounds might be the most amazing
That's wild.
stat line of that.
What is he like? What is he? 6'7", six something,
He
right?
no, he's underrated mass. He's huge.
Yeah,
He's like he might be
yeah.
6'7", 6'8". But the width of him, it was funny. He was posting up. Who'd they play? It was
I
totally
forgot who they
blanking
were
on it.
playing.
Yeah, I know, just bad. That's bad prep on our part. My bad, guys.
Yeah, yeah.
He was posting someone up. It was the Knicks. Duh. It was one of their guards. Maybe it was Quentin Grimes or
Yeah, it was
Quickly,
the Knicks. Yep, yep.
and he does a spin move off Quickly, and it's like Quickly would have taken like 4 steps to get to the other side of like
Yeah,
it was like the sheer width of Luka was
yep,
massive. And I think
yep,
that's such an underappreciated thing. But they got 20 rebounds, 60 points. Amazing game.
yep, yep. And Luka does it in a. It's like been the kind of the craze a little bit, especially when I'm looking at clips when we're breaking down footwork stuff. Um, it's hard to show like kind of what Luka does just because of the mass and because of
Yeah.
the length and stuff and the pace. Like he does so many things that it's the footwork is there, but it's just like these angles that he takes, how he puts people on his back hips. Even when he fades, like it's not like he's fading very far back. He's just like has the perfect angle on a lot of those things. So
Was it
yeah, his
Jamal
game's interesting.
Crawford? Jamal Crawford said he looked like the old guy he went to play with high schoolers, like the old former
Yeah,
college player who
yeah,
played. Because
yeah.
again, when you're
It's just
that
crafty.
well, when you're that big, like that's the thing.
Yeah,
People watch him and you want to mimic him. If you're not his weight, you
yeah,
can't do that. You can't do what
right.
Shaq did. You can't do what Jokic does if you're not his size. And people don't. That's like saying I'm gonna go be Ja Morant and try and dunk on people, but I can't dunk.
Right.
Like you
Right.
can't.
I would be interested to like get this is not gonna happen, but it would be awesome if it did. If I could get in front of Luka, right, and play defense and just feel the speed that he probably has or like the push off or the acceleration. I remember there's a situation we had like a former NBA guy that was playing overseas and in the workouts, right, he's just flowing and it looks like from a distance that he's not moving that fast. And I got in front of him and played defense, and it was like his first stride. I was like, yeah, that's like 2 of my steps right there at least. Like so I know Luka, like the biggest thing is he looks a little slow sometimes, but I don't know. It's just different, obviously, when you're on the floor.
So for you physics nerds out there, this is actually an important thing. So you look at Ja and you look at Luca, and these are two
Mm-hmm.
guys who get by people on different
Way different.
variable ends of the spectrum. And a simple like equation you can think about is momentum, which is mass times velocity. And Ja
Mm-hmm.
Morant is a velocity guy. Doesn't have much mass. He looks like he's a buck 60, man. He's tiny looking.
Yeah.
He
Skinny.
might 175 maybe, but ridiculous velocity. So you multiply them together. Let's say it's one mass, two velocity. You get two for your momentum, right? This is just like butchered physics math.
Sure.
But the other way around works too. You have two mass, one velocity, and that's Luca. Like Luca is like
Yeah.
two Ja Morants in
Yes.
stature. And
Yeah.
so equivalent wise, if you think about like the physics aspect of it, if you're trying to absorb the force to stop a momentum of two, regardless of how it's created, is equal. So the
Right.
force
Okay.
needed to stop Luca is assuming in this hyper balanced equation of
Right.
John and Luca is
Yeah.
equal. And so that's why you can play someone who's really big and they're really hard to move, or someone who's really fast and light, but they hit you and you're like, I lost
Dang.
three years of my
Yeah.
life without that contact.
Yeah.
The momentum is still the same. You can think
That's
about it.
interesting. I've never thought about it like that. That's very interesting though.
Yeah, think about like a tugboat versus like a speedboat. They
Yeah.
have different masses. Well, that's probably a horrible example, actually. Think about the Luca and Ja. That's just like it's
Yeah.
a really easy example, or like older brother, little brother kind of thing was the
Right.
example I was
Right.
gonna say, where the older brother isn't that much faster than the little brother. Like, yeah, they're
Yeah.
probably fat, but they're bigger. And when you weigh
Yeah.
like 40 pounds more than someone and you
It's
get
different.
hit, because think about that. What do you think Emmanuel Quickly's weight is? I mean, it's listed at
Yeah.
something, but what, buck 90
I
probably?
wonder what Lucas is. I'm gonna look
It's a
that up
lie.
quick.
It's a
Yeah.
so Reed, who we train, Reed with shoes on is 260. And I
Okay.
cannot imagine Luca
They
being
say Lucas 230.
I'm
And
230.
they say Zion is
I
284 and LeBron's 250.
I'm 230. Luka maybe was 230 8 years
Trey
ago.
Young apparently is 164. I don't know.
I don't
That's
buy.
interesting.
Luka's not too. So that's like they had James Harden back in the day listed at like 220. I saw him. I was 190,
Sure.
185. I saw him at Hacks in LA. His shoulders were the size. There was not a chance in hell this
Yeah,
man
he's
was like
big.
210. I was like, no
Yeah.
way. He's
They
six
just put
six.
whatever weight. Yeah. Okay.
They don't change it. I know. Well, I know for a fact, like some of the guys I train, what their weight is online is off by like 20 pounds.
And Luka's gotten a little bit bigger since he's come in the league. Not
Look
like
at the width of his calves. His calves
Yeah,
look
yeah.
like thighs. And that's not like a hate
Yeah.
on him. He's just a big man.
built different. Yeah.
Oh my. Yeah. So when you see
He's interesting and has an interesting shot, which is what we're going to talk about.
yeah, just
Very interesting.
the idea of a shot. So like I texted Shane with no pretext to this, like what's a good shot, and I was actually referencing like the shot attempt, but not the
Yeah.
technique of a shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I like how you came in thinking of the technique of a shot because now
Yeah.
I am spun off my game. I'm actually interested in talking about this too. But I want the 60-point game you watch,
Sure.
and you watch the shots he takes. As a coach, like if you're a high school coach and you had a kid taking those shots,
Oh,
you'd be
go
like,
crazy.
stop taking those, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, Luka doesn't take the shots that like Luka Doncic, I don't know if I've ever seen him in my entire life taking a 2 dribble pull up, 2 hard dribble pull up.
No, like a 2 dribble slam the brakes and go up. No.
Yeah. And so what are you taught in high school? Pump fake, 2 dribble pull up.
Yeah.
Luka will pump fake and like let you fall and just re-engage you and back you down.
Yeah. He'll
Like,
just probe and probe and probe.
not
and then
interested
fake.
in that. And so the question is like, what is the true definition of a good shot for someone?
Shot
the-
selection. Yeah.
Yeah, the simple definition what people think is like space. Oh, if you have a lot of space, that's a good shot. Well, I know guys who
Right.
get a lot of space who can't make shots. So that's not the case. A good
Yeah.
shot is one that has the highest probability of going in at the highest effective field goal percentage.
Right.
Like it's just that simple. And so for Luka, he has an amazing, or DeMar DeRozan's a great example too. A great ability to shoot
mid range. Yeah.
a
bro.
shot that like on the macro level, people
He
like,
had like a buzzer beater where it was like he was like open on the first move, took one more dribble just because he wanted to, hit the shot, but dude's like hand was right in his face. But I guarantee you he likes it like that. Like
Yeah.
that's what he would prefer.
he might have missed the open one.
Yeah. Right.
Like, so the idea of openness is this like arbitrary assignment we've given to someone. Like a classic example, there's a James Harden. There's a famous play where he catches the ball. It's a playoffs in the Rockets. He's on the right wing and he's wide open, but doesn't shoot it and passes it. And people are like, oh, up in arms. But he might have had a miss bobble. He might have been ready. He thought someone was closing out on him.
Right.
The guy pump faked him. And he knew he wasn't, even though he was open, he wasn't in rhythm. Versus you
Sure.
watch like, I don't know, any elite NBA 3-point shooter, they'll just catch it and a guy in their grill will shoot it.
Right.
And so like they're a lot less open. And James has taken way tougher shots than that.
Yeah, but he's more off the dribble too, though. Like that's his thing is going off the bounce.
And that's where people like that makes me so mad. I listened to a podcast. I forgot it was a Cavaliers coach, maybe currently or maybe previously.
Sure.
I don't remember talking about how he doesn't like analytics. Oh, they're wrong, right? Because certain guys like analytics says don't shoot a pull-up jump shot, but DeMar DeRozan shoots it. Well, no, there's a difference between like macro analytics, like on average, and micro, like DeMar DeRozan is analytically actually a very, very good 3-point shooter, or like James Harden's amazing off the dribble shooter. So like, don't ignore analytics. That's just you not understanding analytics.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and as a coach, we take these macro assumptions. I say we, like I'm a coach, as coaches I've dealt with, like, oh, that's a bad shot. Well, like, no, like I'm not going to like, unless you're like a really young player, you're not just going to take bad shots. Like I'm not interested in taking shots I'm going to miss. Like my coach is like, that's a bad look, Max. I'm like, well, I thought I could make it.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
And so it's
interesting. Yeah. I think one of the biggest things too is like, and one of the hardest things I hear from coaches, especially high school coaches, college is a little bit different because they can just be a little bit more honest with you. High school coaches are dealing with these parents and all these things where I've literally heard some coaches say, the whole team, nobody's going to shoot a floater, which
Yeah. Oh God.
some kids are really bad at it. So you don't, but then you have this 5'10" kid and he's like, yeah, no strength on him. And they want him to jump off of 2 feet, make contact and finish. I'm like, this kid will never score at the rim. Then that's ridiculous. And he's good at floaters. But the problem is that sometimes, and not the only issue, but a lot of these coaches, they give out these blanket rules because it's easier to say, hey, if this is just our team mentality, right? We're going to go to the rim, or we're going to shoot threes, or we're going to kick it out, which isn't a bad strategy. But if you have a kid that can actually hit it at that level,
no, it is a bad strategy. It's lazy.
Yeah, it is lazy.
Let's not like beat around the bush here. Like someone says, oh, I'm gonna make a blanket statement. If he was a player, that coach, are you really going to make do you want to be blanket statements and your ability to score is removed because some coach doesn't let you? That's not like our way of playing. There's factually, regardless of emotion, the right shot you should take and the wrong shot you should take.
It's different when you go to college though, because they'll be like, look, Shane, you can dribble three times. Kyle, you're terrible at dribbling. Don't dribble the ball at all, right? Or they'll say, Shane, no pull-ups, just shoot the three or swing it, right? And then say, hey, Steve, you're good off the bounce. Go ahead and shoot pull-ups. They can be honest with you, where some people in high school, I don't know if it's like the coach are worried about hurting the kid's feelings, or like the kid saying, well, mom, he won't let me shoot this shot, but so-and-so gets to shoot all these other shots, blah, blah, blah. So now they come out with these blanket statements, basically just to keep their job safe or to not hurt anybody's feelings. But it's like, dude, you have some kids that can play and can hit different shots than others.
And I hate the college coach that says that too. I'm a grown man, dude. I'm like 21 years old my junior year. Like, I know if I can drive to the hoop or not. Like, don't act.
Yeah.
College coaches are the worst over coaching, because you're in a weird spectrum of like guys who've played the game long enough that they're actually like close to the experience you've played as a coach. Like,
sure.
Like, hey, I played 4 years in college. Coach, what'd you play? 4 years in college? Congratulations. We're at the same level now.
We're the same. Yeah.
Obviously, they have coaching experience, but the idea of like first off, all coaching experience making them better at decision making is an interesting fallacy, because I know a lot of our teammates would call a lot better plays at times than the coach.
Yeah.
Because you're actually intelligent in the game. You're not trying to over analyze it. You get like this like hierarchical power struggle where a coach, like, you can see them, they become obsessive with calling sets every play.
Yeah.
As if like they want to have the impact on the game. And as a player, like, if a coach has ever yelled at me, hey, box out on the rebound. Like, really, coach? I'm 21, dude. Like, I understand, like, this free throw, I'm going to try and box out. Like, you don't need to yell at me to get a rebound.
The instruction. Yeah. I get how this goes.
I at this point, I'm pretty confident, like, past third grade, you don't need to remind me anymore that I have the shooter. Like,
why does a coach do that though? Why does a coach say that?
Because there's not much definition, right? So if you're a coach, no one, like, there's not like a coaching school where they have critical thought processes of like, what's the actual definition of a good shot? What's the definition of so here's an example, and this is like no ding on my college coach, whatever. He yelled at me all the time, you don't play good defense. Because what would happen was these teams would run an action. And my guy, if you look on average, especially in college, all these kids are afraid to shoot because they have so much structure in the game.
Oh, so it's like they don't even look at the rim.
So I know the action. Like, why am I going to pressure him? I know he's going to cut back door after this. Like, can I just like back up?
Overdo it?
And the number of times a player actually catches the ball and after their initial look, they're not open, that they're willing to actually shoot a jab step triple threat three is so low. I would willingly let them take it. I dare you, because I would love to hear your coach yell at you after you miss that you aborted this play to shoot a triple threat three. Like,
that's so funny, bro. Imagine that kid shoots that and you're like, thank you, and he just gets ripped. That's literally what would happen.
Well, I was because
they're running a play. It's like, you got to swing the ball over there. Don't even look at the rim. So you're saying like you would pick up on these things, right? And you'd be like, yeah. You're going to swing it there. You're going to go there. Now you got it. Now I'll play defense.
I would have an aggressive closeout on the ball because he has the highest probability of shooting it. In the minute he lowers that ball to pass, I back up because he's looking for cutters. I know I'm not fast. If I get in your grill, I give you a driving lane.
You're going to go by me.
I dare you to shoot a second pass triple threat three with 15 seconds on the shot clock.
That's hilarious.
If you didn't shoot it right away, I know you're scared to. I knew
so
if I back up
did you ever explain this strategy to your coach.
Yeah,
And then what?
it was like, he's not going to shoot it. Like, I dare you.
What did he
I
say?
wouldn't shoot it because I'd get yelled at.
Yeah.
The coach didn't always appreciate my insights.
Yeah. So you're thinking like this is just natural instinct while you play. He's obviously not playing, right? And you're like, yes, I know how to go. I know how to save my energy. I know when to play defense. I know my strengths as a defender, so I'm going to either do this or that. Where I think he probably wants you to like, no matter what, we're low, we're hands ready, we're up in there, like all these things, right? And it's putting you at a disadvantage. Like
It's
if you
a
have to
huge
get on his
disadvantage.
hip because this is the team rule. Get up and play
Oh
like
my
this because
God.
that's what we do no matter what. Like, all right, I'm gonna get killed like 95% of the time then.
Yeah, I was working with Reed yesterday. And one of the drills we're doing is work on defense. I said to him,
Sure.
look, you have to match my angles. So he has a rope. Reed has a rope. The rope is tied
Yep.
around my waist. I'm dribbling the ball. The rule was I was going to sprint open court, but if I beat him, he has to sprint to recover, right? But unlike traditional defense, if the minute I lower my shoulders, get the hell off me, back up. Because you're basically saying at full speed max, if you stop and shoot a jump shot, like you for some reason are respecting that in the same extent I'm taking a slow dribble. A full speed one dribble pull up jump shot. If a guy makes that, congratulations, that's one hell of a shot. But you're not going to take it.
Right.
So the
Right.
minute someone attacks the hoop, think about on offense. I'm not driving full speed thinking I am now going to pull up. You're trying to find
right.
You're trying
going
to
the
find
rack.
contact.
Yeah.
And the first person I experienced this with, Chasen Randall, play for the Magic. He's in the
Yep.
G League right now. I like to play my guys one-on-one because I want to feel like what it's like to play a
Yeah.
pro. And I would always, he probably didn't go that hard against me, but I'd feel like I was always open. And I drive and I go to shoot and the ball would be gone. Like just like gone, like disappeared
Yeah.
out of my hands. Because he would constantly give
He was
space
stripped.
and close space. And that
Yeah.
was the most
Yep.
interesting thing. So like if someone is full, because working with corralling a point guard off a ball screen for Reed, if the guy goes downhill, lower shoulders in a deep position, like that push pocket dribble, like you talked about in the last podcast,
Yep.
sprint your ass back, turn and burn, get in front
Go
of
to the
him.
rim.
Yeah, because cool, he makes a 12-footer. What's your coach going to say? That's a tough shot.
Good D. No layups.
Yeah,
Yep.
tough shot. So even though the outcome could be the same, if you jumped and the guy goes and shoots a layup, both are 2 points. One's a bad defense and the other one's a tough make.
Well, you think about too, though, the coach's least favorite thing is getting beat off the dribble. And then obviously when you chase hip, like if somebody took me off the dribble and I chase your hip, you're eventually going to get in front of me. But if I chase to a space or chase to a spot, then I can actually be the one that stops that penetration, don't require as much help. Right. Okay.
And when talking about that too, is like a lot of people have done a drill like this before. I'm really like actually give space, give 7 feet, give 5 feet.
Yeah.
Like get off, because first off, in college, there's help side. Guys are coming to dig. They're going to throw hands in there.
Right.
But in NBA, first off, unless you're guarding the dude, right? Which every team has 2 dudes on it. Do you really think that guy is going to be comfortable shooting a full speed 15-foot jump shot? Do you know what's
the perfect example, bro? Like, because it is so structured and so like players literally become a shell of who they were, right? Because you have this very specific role. So if it's this guy that comes off the bench, or if it's this wing player that's a 3-and-D guy, I'd be like, please, Lord, as soon as you dribble, I'm gonna run to that rim. I'll either meet you there or you're gonna shoot a bad shot.
Yeah, shoot. I dare you to shoot a pull up. You haven't practiced a pull up in 2 years. Go ahead and shoot it. It's like I watch these teams play, and if I'm not a coach, but if I played in March Madness, I'd run a 2-3 zone if I was a small team, and I would let every team's big man shoot 15-footers. I would be willing to bet that they couldn't score 50 points in a 40-minute game with their big man shooting 15-footers. I'd just be willing to bet you can't shoot an effective field goal percentage of 50%. Because the minute you miss 2, you start thinking about it. I wouldn't even guard him. Shoot it. I'm not going to beat you mano a mano, but I will beat you if you decide to shoot 15-foot jump shots. Like, it's just like
if I'm on offense, right? If I'm on offense and let's say you have that strategy, what do I do? Do I shoot the pull up? Do I shoot the floater?
So this is cool. This is right in my wheel. So it's called embodied perception. I sent you a message on this.
Yes.
And so
I'm looking at it right now.
The exact study of this, because I don't want to butcher it, because I have the tendency to do that at times. But essentially, it looks at how we perceive our skills. And so the idea is that there's a cool study, which I sent you, Shan. You could check it out. It's in Rob Gray's textbook.
Rob Gray, yep.
Yeah, awesome book called Move. So there's a study where they want to attempt to understand why people took the stairs versus the escalator. And on
I saw you
average,
post this.
those who took the escalator perceived the steepness of the stairs to be more steep. So the steepness of the stairs, let's say, was like 45 degrees. The
Sure.
people who took the escalator, they're like, oh, that must have been
That's pretty steep.
That's 55 degrees. And the people who didn't take it thought it was less. Oh, it's only 40 degrees. That's no big deal. And they've done this study with numerous different affordances. So like whether or not someone could run up a hill and there's water at the top or not, like whether or not they perceive they could do it. So it's embodied perception. So your abilities affect how you perceive things. It's like when you watch Ja Morant and you're like, that's not a lane there. And there's a lane for him.
He just jumps. Yeah.
He just jumps because he perceives it. His body has the physical ability to do it and he perceives it.
Yeah.
So you might be open, but you might not actually perceive to be open.
So does your abilities and your tools decide your perception then? Because Ja is very athletic. So he's like, okay, I can jump over that, or I can jump through that.
There's another study they looked at rock climbers, and they had like a scaling wall essentially. And they looked at beginners versus advanced people, and they put eye tracking on their eyes. So what routes they looked to do. And all the beginners had a very basic route. They looked for all the certain things. The advanced people who had the skills, eyes tracked sporadically over it because they saw everything as an opportunity, right?
Sure.
So it's because
where if I was rock climbing, I would see nothing.
You're looking for the most sturdy, big rock,
the biggest ledge that I can grab with my arm. Yeah. Okay.
And so that's why you watch like Nikola Jokic throw passes. And you're like, how did he see that? Because he literally sees something different based on his abilities. And so the question is, how come when we grow as physical adults, those skills don't catch up with our embodiment? Like an example would be, imagine you're not fast and then you become fast and athletic. How many guys do you see in the NBA who are extremely athletic that didn't use their athleticism to a hyper degree? Right. J.R. Smith, one of the most athletic humans to play basketball. Watch his highlight. Mike from Overtime, Hoffman mentioned this. He's like one of the most absurd athletes. And you can watch his highlights, but he doesn't really do anything athletic with his drives. He'll make crazy finishes, but he's arguably within the realm of just sheer vertical explosiveness of Ja Morant, you could say. In the realm, maybe not equivalent, but doesn't do any of the finishing that Ja Morant does.
Ja did.
Ja uses his physical abilities in the same way Luka uses his physical abilities. And so, like, if you're Luka Doncic and people go, oh, Luka's out of shape, maybe we should get him to lose weight. Like, are you kidding? You'll just have
that's his best part.
You'll have a
that's how he sees things. Yeah.
You'll have a slow mass,
non-powerful
Luka. Like, imagine like if that was the case. And so
how do you grow your perception then? Or like, how do you improve that? Is it improving skill work? Like, if I can't dribble, right, then I'm perceiving openings in the lane. Like, I probably shouldn't go there.
Think about, first off, you gotta be honest. I think a lot of players can actually answer this. And you can look at, can I versus can't I? So an example is, can I physically run that fast or can I not? If you can, but you don't, it's probably your ball handling skills, right? If I can't run that fast with the ball in my hand, but I can run faster, that's my ball handling skills. Another aspect of it, like we touched upon previously, is you haven't experienced success with it. So I might be athletic.
Yeah.
Right. But I've never expressed my athleticism. So I was someone who couldn't dunk in college. And now I can dunk now. I got athletic. I'm 30. And I got my first tip slam at the age of 29 in a men's adult league. And the question is, it took me like so much mental
you
effort.
Just weren't used to like going to dunk it. Like that wasn't a thought of yours.
I had to like consciously be like, I'm going to dunk now. It was weird because like my game would switch. I'd constantly look for holes and gaps instead of like looking at like, can I make contact and bump and fade? And so by playing against a lower competition,
which is my first instinct, I'm like, catch up so I can bump you and fade. Not jump at the rim.
And I was watching this Arkansas LSU game the other day, and this is an example of it. There's a fast break, and the guy for Arkansas goes up for a layup. These two LSU guys jump full dead ass speed down the court, and they just jump and like foul the guy, but crazy contest. And I was like, man, like first off, even if I ran that fast, I don't know if I'd be comfortable even jumping.
These guys,
at the rim. These guys don't even think about it. And so like they're using so much of their physical ability. And you see this in high skill guys. So someone like AJ Green, who I work with, is an extreme high skill guy. He doesn't have Ja Morant athleticism. So the only way he could have been successful to get to where it is, a 2-time Missouri Valley Player of the Year, playing for the Bucks, is to have an absurd level of skill. Same with Steph Curry. Steph Curry's skill is off the charts. There are guys way more athletic than Steph Curry, but his skill is so ridiculous. And so only when you have this pairing of skill and athleticism do you get these like really Victor Wembanyama. People are like, oh my God, like skill and height and athleticism. Is he like this magical unicorn? But in reality is like people who are super athletic, like Zion, you don't need, what's more skill going to do? Like, it's not like he's scoring 45 a game. Being more skilled maybe would take off some of the burden of athleticism. Like Vince Carter was one of the few who transitioned from hyper athleticism to then merging out of that to like being a shooter in his skill.
Adjusting. Yeah.
And that's an honest, like, understanding
Vince Carter's
of
great.
your body.
Yeah. That's so interesting because Vince Carter was very dominant right hand everything. If you watch like some of his early highlights, his drive right hard, he would dunk with his right hand. And then I think about Reed Travis, who we both work with. Like we did like months, right, of him just improving his shot like 1-0. And then they came to an offseason. I was like, look, we can't do that anymore. You need to be a shooter, right? The term was just like, you got to become one, which he never was. So now it's like, we have to change the way you think about what shots are good shots. And then that's when we would play like those D2 kids, right? Where it's like, okay, at this talent level, you can get to some stuff that's easier than playing against probably some pro players, right?
Yeah.
And I think that helped. And even just playing against me and another coach, like us running him down and all these things, he's like, yep, I can hit the shot. So is that the best way? Is you add some skill and then you gain some experience where it's like, okay, like for you, like you got your tip slam. Now the next dunk hopefully will become easier, right? Because you're more willing because you have that experience.
And think about like learning anything. So imagine you are trying to learn a language. You can practice by yourself all you want, but until you get into a conversation, you're not going to experience the mistakes.
You have to answer, right? The randomness, the
variability of just whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, right? Because that all ties back to like, what is a good shot for somebody?
Yeah.
And unless you understand the things that make up a shot in the first place, then you can't really define what a good shot is. So like, I highly doubt a lot of coaches know what embodied perception is, not to be an ass, but like my guess is they probably don't. And that's really hard to then understand why certain guys like Dirk Nowitzki, a fadeaway is a great shot.
1 footer fades. Yeah.
He's gigantic and just leans away. He didn't jump over people. If you look at small players, they score in one of two ways for their jump shot: extreme elevation or extreme quickness. Isaiah Thomas, the one from Washington, extreme elevation lefty. Steph Curry, extreme quickness. Doesn't jump at all.
Yeah.
It's one or the other. Like Trey Young, very quick floaters, quick shots. Clemens, who played at like Campbell, I think it was, a great scorer in college. Jimmer Fredette, an elevator.
Yeah.
Jimmer Fredette jumped out the gym for his jump shot.
He jumps so high. High. Why though? Why did he do that?
Because he didn't develop it quick. So you pick one of two routes. You either pick the quick route or you pick the fast route. Okay. And I mean, the quick route or the jump high route.
Or the
It's just like he had success as a little kid of jumping high. He's probably very.
So he stuck with it. Yep.
Maybe he matured well and like was like early on very strong and could shoot that, and he wasn't faster than the kids. So, and someone maybe told him don't fade away, so he just jumped over people. Yeah. Chris Paul has the like overhead fadeaway toss he does.
I do though. There either when I like play men's league now, or even I think about college, like there were shots that if you didn't shoot, even though there were different shots than everybody else, if you didn't shoot that specific shot, somebody would yell, you need to shoot that. That's your shot. You have to. That's like, otherwise people get upset. Right. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite literally was you catch, jab, pause, and then pull it. For some reason, I don't know if that's what I practiced when I was younger, or if maybe it was like I had success like twice.
You played a bunch of people like me who backed off after the first catch.
Yeah, who didn't? Yeah, that's right.
You gamed me.
Didn't want to get on my hip. God, if I had better defenders when I was younger, man, I probably could have been something else. Somebody that jumped on my hip. Maybe I just would rip and go and I'd be quicker off the bounce. If I think about it too, like the people that I grew up playing against they were like people just like me, right? That didn't jump on the hip, that didn't close out hard. So it's like, yeah, jab. All right, I'll shoot this.
Yeah, I played against really athletic dudes, and I shot a fadeaway. And my college coach was like, "Don't shoot a fadeaway." And like
I'm like, how else will I?
my friend was a
Yeah,
lefty, and so he always would spin because he'd drive right, spin back left.
go
And the
back to the
college
left. Yep.
coach would say, "Spin
Lefties do
moves,
that all the time too.
spin moves don't work in college," is what he said. So he wasn't allowed to spin anymore, and that
That's
was like his
crazy.
main move. And so he's like, "What are
Okay,
you,
so now yeah,
what are you
he
talking
just got
about?"
rid
He's
of
like,
half of
"Yeah."
his
He's like, "Spin
options.
moves don't. We're not allowed to spin. If you spin, you run." And he's like, "Based on what?"
Yeah, you recruited me here.
Are you kidding? This is what science says
So
that
what?
this.
What? Because we talked about there's no school, no program for college or for coaches, right? What is it having some of that study stuff, right? And I also think going back to what we said is like when the coach would yell like Max box out, and you look at him like, dude, yeah, I know. Like, do they feel like them sitting on the bench quietly, right, or not quietly, but just like not saying stuff isn't good enough?
Well, how
Like,
do
do they feel
coaches
like they need to
again?
be doing things?
Coaches me pissed at me because I'm making blanket statements in a world I'm not super versed in. But they go to like coaching clinics taught by their coaches. Have they ever read a motor learning book? Like a coach
Right.
is supposed to help a player learn movement,
Move.
right?
Yeah. How to
How
move.
about you
Yep.
learn the science? There is a science that is funded by research that you can Google in PubMed. There are books on it, believe it or not,
Yeah.
on how
Yeah.
we learn to move. There's a
Yeah.
literal science to it. And
Is that something that you learned when you were going through school for, whatever you guys
to
or
an
whatever you
extent,
went
I
through?
learned much
Okay.
more later.
Sure.
Motor learning, certain schools don't have a specific curriculum directly geared towards it. Rob
Okay.
Gray in Arizona State has a grad program. I believe he teaches as well there.
He's got a great podcast too.
Great podcast. I sent that to you.
You
Dude,
did.
look,
I'm pumping through yeah.
it's great. And
Going through the
the funny
episodes.
thing
Yeah.
is, like, motor learning, of course, like the foundations of it are kind of hilarious because it was invented like in Soviet era Russia in an attempt to better understand how to make tanks faster. They wanted to figure out like
Wow.
how blacksmiths strike hammers more efficiently to not have any misstrikes. And
Leave it
so
up to the Soviets.
they studied
Figure
like
that out.
the hammer strike, and what they found was
Yeah.
his name was Nikola Bernstein, who's like a godfather of motor learning, is that the elite blacksmiths had a different backswing every time, but they hit the nail more often. The amateur blacksmiths had the same pattern every time of the backswing, but missed the nail more often.
So shooting technique, that could be a shooting
And
technique
that's the
thing.
thing is you actually want variability because you watch guys and you get so obsessive, like you have to shoot like this, you have to shoot like that. But life is variable. The causal
Yeah.
outcome of the make of a basketball, the physics is distance, so release velocity and angle. It has nothing to do with form. I could throw a ball underhand, a la, is it Rick Barry, right? Great
Yeah.
underhand and make shots. So by default, he's proven that you don't need to have
The
mechanics to
technique
be
doesn't matter as much. Right.
physics determines whether or not it goes in, and then you determine
Physics.
repeatability.
Yep.
So what does your biological system allow for repeatability? And you talked about this off air, and you see all the time with little kids. Little kids get a big 29.5 basketball, they get a 10-foot hoop, and you wonder why they shoot with two hands because they physically
shove it.
yeah, they physically can't get it there with good form. So when I grew
But the reward is seeing the ball go through the net, right? So they're like,
so they start to learn two hands,
Yeah.
and then they grow
Yeah.
up and they get older, and they're physically strong enough to shoot with one hand, but they still shoot with two because why? They learned
Habit.
this pattern
Yeah.
of success. And so, like, as the idea of this like skill and physical asynchrony, so like they're physically strong enough but they don't express the skill. So you get a kid
Mhm.
and you're like mandating him to do something like shoot like this. First off, should you even shoot? The guy Michael Red hucks it over his head. AJ Green, who I work with, is a lights out
Well,
shooter
the
above his
amount
head.
the amount of
Like,
pro players that thumb the ball, right?
yep,
Are
Ray
it's
Allen
crazy.
did. People don't
Yeah.
want to say it. Look at Ray Allen.
Kyrie, Curry, a lot of people do it. I've even seen pictures of Damian Lillard, like his hand, the ball sits in his hand, and his fingertips, his shooting hand fingertips are off the ball.
Yeah, he
until
palms
he
it. He like
finishes
flicks it, like spins
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so the man at the end of the
Crazy.
day is like, my dad always said, if you can make it once, you can make it again. Like that's
Yeah.
that's a simple motto.
Yeah.
He's like, don't worry about your form. If you
So-
can make it once, make it again.
What would you say to a parent or to an athlete or another coach that maybe thinking about a shot change? How would you approach something like that?
I have done that with a kid actually. It was a
Okay.
friend, and it worked very well. But the way we did it was you give him like structure, but to explore within it. So you're not
Okay.
going to sit there and be like elbow here, hand here. I said two things. I want good backspin on the ball, And our way to develop it was shoot the ball as high as you can, not at a hoop. Just shoot it as high as you
That's
can.
what we do too. We literally did that today. I was like, get away from the hoop. I want you to throw and shoot this thing as high, literally as high as you can.
Because that's physics and the
Yep.
backspin's trajectory control. That's
So
it.
now he's understanding how to get leverage and use a lever to like, yeah, okay.
And
Yep.
and then so what my dad would do this to me, I actually had to do this as a kid. I broke my hand. He's like, time to fix your shot, son. I was like, no, I was like crying in the backyard. What we did was I would shoot it in the air, like an arc
Yeah.
over 10 feet, and then slowly walk to the hoop to the point where I was close enough that it would go in. I'm not even like trying to make it. I'm just like shooting the same arc. It's like, all right, now you're
Yeah.
making it. Now you take a step back and still make it. And we would just go step by step every day. And I learned the energy transfer. And he was a big proponent of shoot from half court, shoot the same form,
Shoot
like,
farther.
shoot further
Dude,
away,
I
expand it.
tell kids this all the time with form shooting, right? I'll go to the next to the rim and I'll shoot two hands. And then the next one, I'll thumb it. Next one, I'll shoot left-handed. I'll make 3 in a row. And I'd be like, imagine I scoot back there and do that. There's no way it goes in, right? So when I'm telling these kids to do form shots, right, or no jumps, right, basically just shooting with your upper body and flowing with your legs and not popping off the ground, I say, can we scoot back to mid-range and do no jumps and then develop that all the way back to the 3-point line? Because it will expose, right? The farther you scoot back, the more issues you have with your physics of your shot. They'll be highly exposed that way.
Just think about the trajectory, right? So you guys have all taken some sort of class of math. I'm not sure which one this is. Where you, like maybe it's geometry, where you look at circle and radians and the radius. And so if you ever look at like the distance, the further the object away is that you're launching something, the smaller the deviation or the more amplified the deviation perfection is. What I mean by that is if it's a 45-degree angle you need to perfectly have to make the shot. If you're 46 degrees and you're 2 miles away, the ball's going to miss by like hundreds of feet. Right.
Yes,
so it's amplified. But if you're like next to the hoop and you shoot, you might make it actually.
You might.
Right. And so the amplification of air exists the further back you are. And so without even knowing it, you're actually essentially shooting on like a smaller hoop. So like by default,
that's true. Yeah, that makes sense.
Actually causing what's called the standard error of movement to reduce. So if you think about every time we do a movement, there's a little bit of variability that occurs left and right. Like when you draw the letter A, every A is a little bit different. Every time you shoot the shot's a little bit different. But eventually to the point, the difference might get exposed into a miss the far enough back you are. And so as you back up further and further, if you don't have things perfect, it's going to be more amplified and come off as an error, a mistake, which is why you can take wild ass pull-up jump shots with crazy form and get away with it and make more of them. But you can't take that same wild jump shot and have the same consistency deep because you might actually have an error that's large enough at that 15-footer that it wouldn't go in at 30 feet away.
Sure. Well, I have a question for you then. And this could be a whole nother topic for another podcast, but let's say I want to become an elite shooter. And, everybody's always talking about reps, right? And now there's a big push in basketball training to add variables into your shooting, which I agree with, right? Add some randomness, add different looks, shoot from 2, shoot from 3, shoot on the move. Don't know what shot's coming next, right? How do you, what if there's a kid where, right, maybe they're younger or whatever it is, or they're going through a shot change. Is getting the same shot in the same spot enough variables for some kids?
This is a huge argument here. So this is an argument in the motor learning science world. And there's a school that says we should do everything through constraints-led approach. So CLA, that's the example of like randomness. So maybe you might have a constraint in the sense, or like it's an environmental approach, but essentially what you can think about is structured versus unstructured. Things where we do things kind of randomly and they get better because the randomization forces the body to merge into a specific pattern, or we control the pattern under structure. So we say, hey, you got to shoot like this. And so it's hard to say that structure's never worked. If you just like people practice with structure and they've gotten better. So you've seen kids who've never had this quote unquote randomness and still have made progress. So obviously structure has to work to an extent. The argument is the level that it works. My argument in that realm is that they don't even have structure in their shots. So by nature, just shooting the ball is highly variable. Like it's just like so chaotic that you don't even know what's going on. And eventually that form and structure might begin to merge and take shape. And then you can add variability.
Then you slide the scale over to the variability side.
And so you always want to be pushing a little bit, but you don't want to be pushing over. Think about
Right.
keeping a
Okay.
ball rolling versus like booting it down the street. You just want to keep the ball rolling. And so for
Yeah.
some kids, like
That's
just
a good way to put it.
shooting, there's so much
Make 3 in a row. Right. Yeah.
so much variability just in
Yeah.
the way they catch the ball. They haven't caught the basketball enough to even know. Like, and you can start with small variability.
Yeah.
Like maybe you roll it, maybe you have a bounce pass
Yeah.
versus a chest pass.
Can you do both at the same time? Like, let's say, can I introduce let's say, for lack of better terms, can I just get the basic reps, but also introduce some variability, or is it like
Absolutely. I
get
think you
the reps
totally
first
can.
and okay, yeah,
And,
because
and
that's a big thing right now with a lot of my kids is like the biggest complaint is I can't make shots in games, right? And it's like, okay, is this a skill thing or is this a situation thing? Like, or what is going on,
so
right?
it's a variability with purpose. And what I mean by that is you don't just want to do, in my opinion, just complete like sheer arbitrary.
Randomness.
Maybe that
Yeah.
kind of works. Sure, whatever. But there are certain things, they're called attractors and fluctuators, things that are always there regardless of the environment, like the follow through. That's an
Regardless.
attractor,
Yeah.
right? You always have the follow through in a certain way, or you always
Mm-hmm.
have some level of balance to an extent. You could argue the
Yeah.
magnitude of
Yeah.
balance. But the
Yep.
fluctuators might be shot pocket, stance, timing, speed of
Yeah.
shot, trajectory angle of the shot itself, your body's torso
Mm-hmm.
position. And so what you might do is you might put them in a situation that only challenges a couple of those fluctuators to build robustness. So
Yeah.
we're going to shoot this one really quick, or we're going to shoot this one with the defender's hand in your face.
With a closeout. Yeah.
Yeah, or we're going to shoot this one in a staggered stance, or we're going to shoot this one without seams on the ball. Or you're doing certain things to challenge it. Like, okay, I'm challenging the ability to catch the pass. So that's the fluctuator of the catch and gather. Or I'm challenging the ability of their getting their feet down. So how quick they can shoot it. Or I'm challenging the ability to shoot out of a left shot pocket. So you're
Sure.
specifically adding a variability within it. And so you're
Yeah.
adding what's called a constraint to the environment. You're not allowing the movement to take place unless this other movement, shooting from the left shot pocket, takes place first. So you're constraining it. And there's like natural constraints, which is like you have to throw in the strike zone if you're a pitcher, or you try to at least, if you're trying to throw strikes, or you have to make the shot. Then there's like environmental constraints, which is like, oh, I'm playing against really tall guys, or the court is 94 feet long. That's a constraint.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you talk about biological constraints, which is like, I'm not physically strong enough to get it there. And so there's like layers within this world. And
there's so many with everybody too. Everybody's got in the way that, just like we talked before, everything from when they grew up and perceived and their experiences will play a role into that as well.
And at the end of the day, like it's really important to realize there isn't a secret sauce formula. Like apparently people have gotten really good through certain means and methods. Like what's the famous line Bruce Lee said, I'd rather face a guy who's done 1,000
with one
different
good
kick or whatever, or versus a guy who's kicked one kick 1,000 times. And so like maybe there is a granular aspect of truth to that, and some people might excel, because you should never ignore what works for you. Like if
play
you're
to your strengths.
If you're for some reason like I love variability as a shooter. I hated consistent reps. But there are some guys I've played with who like they just want to get reps and then they can just shoot the dickens out of the ball. And so like I don't know, like science would suggest that my way would work better, but the dude shoots better than me, and I'm not really going to mess with that. And so so there's like a give and take with it.
It's sometimes it seems like it's so individualized.
If you're not making progress, right? If you're not making progress, that's a time to evaluate. Or maybe like at the pros and certain guys who are very trying to edge out the last 4%, 5%, then you start to really think about this, because they've played basketball for so long. Do you really think shooting any more reps is going to, like, think about that between you and this is a horrible thing to think about. How many reps did we waste? Like, how much time did we spend doing nothing that got us nowhere? On average, we actually don't make much progress in basketball. And you could argue that is because we don't apply the science very well, or you could argue that maybe it's because we don't know the science very well, or we have too many biases based on our own beliefs versus not like educated justifications. Like on average, the science would say this. We just say, no, but we did this. And so you have these issues in there. But I do I think the idea of exploring, at least at the moment, is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
But I don't
I
think
think I think that one thing I see too is like a lot of these parents, like I had a, I've ran into a bunch of parents that somebody will say something like, you know, he will ask me in front of the kids, like, yeah, how many shots, Shane, how many shots you think is good for in a week? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, who are you? What position you play? Like, where did, you know what I mean? Like, and I'll say some random number and he'd be like, see, Jimmy, I told you, you got to be making this amount of shots. I'm like, you don't know if that's what he needs though. Like, we have no idea.
I heard a story. I'm not sure if it's true, but it's a legend. So Kyle Korver, if you hear this, you can give me a ring. He's like, apparently Kyle Korver went to the gym one day. And I forgot, someone went to watch him work out. And I'm going to leave names out of it. But he said basically he shot one shot. He didn't like it and left. I was like, what am I going to do? Get worse?
I heard this. I've heard that. I heard literally, I've heard this, not that specific story, but I've heard that when Kyle Korver did his workouts, if at any point he was missing continuously or something didn't feel right, he'd go.
Just leave. That's what I've heard. So maybe it's true. I've heard from all
I think about some days too where I if I take a day off, right? When I was playing, if I would take some days off, I would feel way better when I would come back. And I'd be like, was I just like compiling error after error after error by just getting more and more reps? And I should have just chilled and took a day off and reset whatever motor system in my, you know what I mean? And just
think about this
went back the next day.
Like how often we do reps at 85% because you're like, I'm going to work out for 60 minutes and you just work out for 60 minutes. But like, if I were to run sprints, I want to get better at sprinting. I'm not going to jog for 60 minutes. I'm going to sprint and take big breaks. And so when you're challenging your brain to learn something, like imagine you're learning a language. You wouldn't, I'm going to cram 60 minutes straight. You might take a 15-minute break. Like, why don't we take breaks in training? Why? There's so many archaic things. Well, there's so many things in training that exist because we're stuck within a temporal constraint, which exists for high schoolers. Sure, you only have so much allotted time to train. But as a pro guy, like, you can take a break. You can shoot for 20 minutes, take a break, and shoot again for 20 minutes, take a break, and keep shooting over and over again because that's your job. And you don't even have to sweat when you work out. Like, you do all these crazy things.
I have a story for that. Like God, I forget who it was. Brent Berry. Do you remember Brent Berry?
I actually think I met Brent. He's the athletic one, right? I met Scooter Berry once.
Yeah, I think there's John Berry, Brent Berry, Rick Berry was the dad. I think so. Brent Berry, I think, works for the Spurs. I don't know if I'm right there or not, but
I think that's right.
He's in the front office with the Spurs, or was. He DM'd me on Twitter randomly and was like, look, I used one of your drills. It was like a backwards jumps balance drill or something like that. He's like, I used one of your drills for my ebook for shooting. And he just wanted to say thanks and whatever. And he sent me a copy of it. So I read a little bit, and he tells a story about Steve Kerr working with a shooting coach for the Spurs. And the Spurs coach brought him in for a workout, and Steve's like, all right, what are we going to do? And at this point, Steve Kerr's past the Bulls, right? He's a whatever guy off the bench. And the coach has him. He's like, just take a seat there, have some coffee. Read the newspaper. And then at randomly 5 minutes later, he checks his watch. He's like, all right, let's go. And then gets Steve up, passes him one shot. I don't know if he makes or misses it, and then goes back and sits back down. And he's like, you're going to have to come off the bench cold like this. And that is massive. You know what I mean? Like that was very specific to Steve Kerr. So, and I'm sure Steve got a million reps, right, in his shooting career, and probably could do that by himself. So this guy's like, look, we're going to sit here. You're going to get cold, and we're going to hop back in.
Yeah, you got to ask yourself, like, I've shot how many shots? If I shoot any more of those shots, am I really going to get any better? Right. Or do I need to try something in this other area? Think about, like, you are within a box, right? My friend Vernon Griffith says this from like extra movements, but he's like, imagine a box and you keep doing the same reps. Well, you're going to learn the radius of that circle within the box you've explored. But how about get to the corner? Find the edges. Go to these parts you haven't gone to, because you've spent so much time extracting whatever the squeeze out of that lemon of that one slice. Like, there's a whole other lemon left. So people say, oh, that's crazy, don't do that stuff. Well, it's like, look, I've already gotten really good, and odds are I haven't gotten any better in 3 years.
I want to go over that corner over there. Yeah.
Let me try this one over here, because at worst, it's going to challenge certain things related to your shot, which then might teach you what you need to do. Because a lot of times I talk to people, and I said, look, like, you should know what you need to work on. And you should really think about, and like, again, it's a lucky situation that I know AJ Green really well, good friend. I trained him, but it's just like, he's likes the sports science stuff. He's a picture of him reading Rob Gray's book, walking
Yeah,
through
I've
the
seen you
Bucks
post that.
tunnel. It's
Yeah.
hilarious because him and I have book clubs. We talk about this stuff. And it's just
Yeah.
like the more he can learn what he needs to learn and what he needs to do, or any athlete, the better it is. Because you should go to Shane and say, Shane, I need to get better at these things.
I need this.
Let
Yeah.
me, Mr. Resource, to help me do that. You are,
Mhm.
Shane, the Google. I don't go to Google
Yeah.
and like, tell me what I want to try and look for. No, you go to Google
Right.
looking for something. So like, if you come to me like, I want to work out, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, me too.
What are
Like,
we gonna do? Yeah.
no, what do you want to
Let's
get better at? Like,
Yeah.
what do you want to do? And it's like when I work with
Yeah.
Reed, when we talk about getting him, physically ready to handle certain positions and movements, like, what are
Mhm.
you not good at?
What
Like,
is it? What are you not confident in, or what doesn't feel as good? Yeah.
and then let's work
I feel like that's
together.
a skill. I feel like that's a skill for kids to know how to self-evaluate. I think that's something that they probably aren't taught a lot, but it is super valuable, like you're saying.
Because when you're a pro or even you're in college, it's your career, man. It is your career.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you look in the mirror, it's your career. And so,
Yep.
like, kind of tying this back all together, like, what is a good shot is up to
Yeah.
you. Like, really
Yeah.
try and understand the definition of a good shot. Don't say it's because it's open, or
Yeah.
think about, like, is it like the highest effect or true shooting field goal percentage yield for me? I had a line I said, it was a pickup. I said, my bad shots are better than any of your open looks.
That's how I felt. That's how I felt in high school. I always tell people that. I was like, look, if I don't shoot this 50% contested shot, that means that guy over there is going to shoot a wide open shot and it's going to be bad.
I tell you this right now, that one ain't going in.
Yeah.
That's true,
funny.
though. It's factually
yeah.
true. And
Yeah.
coaches, like, the reason why I brought up, I mentioned Marshall Henderson in our show notes. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if, is it Andy Kennedy, Adam Kennedy? I apologize. Kennedy is the last name coach. He coached at Ole Miss. He now coaches UAB. Marshall Henderson, high clip scorer. He now works with
Mhm.
Jelly Walker at UAB, nation's leading
Mhm.
scorer. He has a knack for just like, Lon Kruger had the same knack too, for having like prolific scorers. Buddy Hield, Trey Young, these guys
Mhm.
who just took shots that people were like, oh, that's a bad shot. But lo and behold, they'd win games and score lots of points.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Like, I wonder what those guys, I think it's,
That's what I was going to say. I wonder what they would say to what they've done or said to those players to make them feel like that, or to give them that.
yeah, like, it's a very interesting realm to go, because those are two coaches who stand out to me the most when it comes to just like, Mike
Sure.
D'Antoni kind of was an envelope pusher in the NBA from that standpoint, but from a college standpoint, those are the two guys who I've seen with like the most commonly like gunslinging players. And so, like,
Right.
maybe they think about a good shot in that extent. And then
Yeah.
and we're not going to dive into it here, but you can talk about what's good defense too. Like, the defense is the
Mhm.
inverse of that. So like, what's
Like
good
what you had talked about earlier. Yeah.
My good defense,
What's good defense for Max versus what's good defense
and
for
people,
Marcus Smart, right?
yeah. And what people make the mistake of is like, good defense isn't stopping someone. People think defense is a yes or no. It's not, did I block or steal someone's shot? It's, did I have them take the highest or the worst probability shot?
The worst.
Too often people try and block it and they foul someone. And when you try and block someone, it actually increases their true shooting percentage, because you can foul them and they can get free throws.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you get a steal, that's a hindrance on you. Let them shoot it and let them miss it. If they make it, congratulations.
Yeah.
It's not about makes or misses, it's about probabilities. And so, like,
okay. So I have a question for you. If let's say like we talked before, you got your kid, right, and you want them to be a high level shooter, right? What are you going to do with them? Are you going to teach them the physics, right? Are you going to have them shoot without on a certain level hoop? Or are you going to
I think you first
have them shoot with no hoop?
Foster success.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
Encourage them. My dad taught me how to shoot, and he was always very encouraging.
Same. Yep.
Shoot the ball. You're the best shooter out there. He never told us the best shooter out there. Your shot's better than his shot. Go shoot it. You know,
this sounds literally like my father.
And
that's crazy.
It's so potent when someone believes in you. And it's the same thing, belief in schooling. Someone tells you you're smart. You're like, you're not like, I am smart. I gotta be accountable and be smart now for them. And so foster the urge to shoot and like the want to shoot. And then next, in that realm is like, they're gonna start taking shots. And that's really important, because the famous thing is like, if you take shots and miss shots, people are still going to think you're a shooter.
Oh my gosh.
so,
Isn't that crazy? People have NBA players have labels as shooter, and you're like, dude, this guy literally is not that at all. Or
and,
3-and-D is like, this guy's not even good on defense.
And so you can go in and you can establish yourself as a shooter by just shooting the ball. And they're going to,
Sure.
by default, you'll become a shooter. You're either going to get better at it or you're going to keep shooting the rock.
Yeah.
You obviously have to make shots.
Help them feel like they have that label of like, I am a shooter.
Yeah. And take tough shots, make tough shots. A lot of things that were really helpful was like really learning your shots. That helped me a lot. Was like, my dad was always like, reflect on a miss, understand why you miss it. And
feel it like, did it come off that part of your finger wrong? Like, yeah.
And some people say that's not a good thing. It's always helped me because what he's doing without knowing it is it pushes the attractors. You start to learn what actually matters. Like, and then when you learn what matters, you learn what doesn't matter. So then you start.
Perfect example for that. It'll slip off my hand to my pinky, and I will purposely shoot my follow through the other direction. And if you probably froze it, it would be pointing the wrong way, and be like, "That's the wrong follow through." And I'm like, "Look, it was come off my hand the wrong way, so I had to."
And then what you think is you don't think about your feet. Oh, it's my hand, so I can take any shot I want as long as my hand's right. I can make anything. So like
if my elbow's square,
people think often, oh, you've made it too conscious, right? You made him he's thinking about a shot. No, actually, I removed him to think about anything else. So now he's not thinking about his footwork. He's not thinking about the catch. You get these guys who are like dip, elbow, hand, eye, shoot. And you're like, okay, if any of this goes wrong along the way, then I ain't making it. But if I'm just my release point, the shot's on my hand anyway, make or miss. We're gonna find out. At least we're gonna find out now. It's in the air. And so that's an important one for me. Is like, and there was a follow-through thing for me, like learning what matters most. Especially because if you go into a game and you're missing shots, you're gonna have to sometimes like just shooting your way out of it doesn't work. You're gonna be like, okay, like in warm-ups to halftime, let's what's my rhythm, my timing?
I gotta make some adjustments. Yeah.
And people don't like to hear that in like the controlled world of sports where like the random variability, people hate that. It's helped me. So I think like owning your shots.
Man, that's helped me too.
Own your shot, make it your shot, encourage the shot, shoot the damn ball, go outside and practice, imagine stuff. People don't imagine anymore. Go out there, think you're in a game, think you're different players, go play as your favorite player, go take shots. Because when you start to envision it, it brings in the variability naturally. Because now that defender is magically not a cone. That defender was guard. That's why I took that shot. That defender was on me.
You know what? That's why I like these conversations. I really like this podcast because of your understanding of the science behind stuff, right? And the idea is like some of these like basic things, right? That it's like politics. It's like it's either we're going all this way or we're going all that way, but we can slide the scale based on what we need, right? Like we can, if I need reps, then that's what I need, right? Or if I need like to make it a little bit more challenging, then that's what I need.
Yeah, I challenge everyone to just try and find true definition. Like, what is to start at the top? What is a good shot? What, as a coach, like, why are you yelling at me to box out? Like, do you really need to yell at me to box out? Like, my coach never gave me any energy to play. At the age in college, like, sure, the bench would actually hype me up more when I heard the bench cheer. My coach yelling like "good job" didn't mean anything.
Nothing.
I knew your ass was going to.
That's so interesting.
Anyway, my boys, when they hype me up and they dab me up on a three, and I throw up my tray ball, or I start to stir the pot with a little three guitar.
Don't give a crap about if coach is
my
happy
coach
or not.
dap me up. Screw you, dude. I know you want to win, and maybe it's a bad relationship with the coach, but like, you know, like I don't know. I didn't feel like an endearment to him because I knew if I missed shots, he'd pull me, and that's the cost of doing business. I get it.
Yep.
He's making business decisions, man. And he's not going to be the hype guy, and he shouldn't be, because that's a stupid coach. If you're going to keep shooting it, Max.
Well, just like the guy shouldn't be the guy that needs to tell you to box out, right? Like that's not
the
even
same token, right? He doesn't need to like be like, hey, box out. I'm like, I know.
Hey, Max, remember, I've been hearing that since third grade, sir.
Like, all right, make sure you really set the screen, coach. If we're not going to set the screen without the information, or we're not going to set it with you. The deed's been done already at this point.
Yeah.
Versus like being like intelligent and being like, okay, they have a certain lineup in. When this lineup's in, let's run a 2-3 zone because of tendencies. This action's working really well. And I don't want to get into coaching. We can do it another time. But like, College coaches, at least I've worked with, and they do this all the time. If the action worked, run it again. Run it till they stop it. Just run the damn thing over and over and over. And don't run a counter. Run the same thing. Run the same play. Because I'll tell you right now on defense, when you guys ran an action and scored on us, I was praying to God he didn't ran that same thing next time.
For sure.
God, do not run the cross screen big back Spain. Please don't.
It's like having a team that has some structure from your coach as far as like how are we going to play, but then having players out there that are self-thinkers that like we need to do this because of this, and not like coach said these are the rules, so don't think about anything and don't be creative, just do what we're supposed to do, because that's just not how it works. The coach isn't going to win a game like that.
I'll end it. Well, I want to wrap it up here, not drag everyone too long, but there's a quick story. It's exactly like that. We have playing co-college, we are in my freshman year, playing North Park in Chicago, and the big man was like 0 for 3 for 20 from the 3-point line early in the season. So he shot 23. Yikes. So like clearly the guy can shoot though, because he's the coach is still letting him shoot. He's
pulling. He's still shooting.
Yeah. And so on the scouting report it said like not a shooter. So Rondo defense, back off. He hits 2 threes.
Let's go.
And we're like, okay. And like he's on the other teams. It's not our guy, the other guy. It's North Park.
Oh, okay.
Hits a 2 threes, misses, and then comes down, hits a third one, and our big man yells, goes, he's not a shooter, though. And we're all like, dude, just guard him. He's hit 2.
He is, though, you dummy. Like, what do you mean?
Like, I don't care if you are or not. You hit 2 3. Like, guard his ass. Like,
yeah.
And you can tell, like, the minute guy with his form, like, you're like, oh, that guy can actually shoot the rock. He just maybe
right. You can tell how it flows up the
be
body.
A smart basketball player. Like this guy flanks one and throws it like behind his head and makes it. Like I dare your ass to make it again. Like go ahead.
Right. Please do that again. There's no way that's consistently going.
That's basketball smarts, right? Be an intelligent person. And so like that's where the analytics get in the way, because you can
sure.
People don't understand it. Like what's the sample size? Well, 10 shots is not a sample size. So like if you guys throw it behind his head, I could shoot from half court and easily start the season 3 for 10 or 4 for 10. And be 40% 3-point shooter from half court. And the coach was like, get up on him. He's like, no, shoot half court shots all you want, dude. Go ahead.
No, I like it.
That's why I'm going to leave it at here today. I know we're at the time length. It's pretty long, so we'll stop it here. Again, appreciate you guys listening. Feel free to share these clips wherever you want. We love the reposting is always very cool. So we appreciate that a ton. Shane, do you have anything to say before I hog the end here?
No, I think it was good, man. It's another good podcast. I think by
the way, I always love the hype that I like you say this is a good podcast. Let's just
another great
you guys
one.
Didn't know another one.
In case you don't know, if you haven't decided, this was another good one.
You should look for an adjective to describe it. This was a good one.
I encourage people to leave the comments, kind of we talked about before, because the topic episodes is all us right now. So if we can get some feedback on that, that'd be awesome, because we'd love to talk about that stuff, anything that's on people's mind.
Absolutely.
I do think like when we have these topic ideas, like today was like, what's a good shot? We probably hit. I mean, each thing that we talked about probably could be a different podcast too.
I know. I'm looking at the show notes. We got to some of them.
Well, and that's one of my favorite things too, because technically a lot of it was all related. But anyways, regardless, if people have ideas, please leave them in the comments. Please DM us, or however you tweet at us, however you want to do it.
Absolutely, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate you all. Take care. You won't hear this by New Year's, but it's New Year's tomorrow or next day. So happy New Year's, everyone. You'll hear it later, but give you guys a little love. Happy 2022. Appreciate you, Shane. All right, guys. Take care.